Today, I'm talking to Charlie Hillman, a junior doctor currently based in A&E. We discuss the highs and lows of the emergency room, how to use your influence to get things put right, and how your hobbies can generate valuable insights about your drives and your skill sets.
You'll spend 80,000 hours at work. You're here because you want those hours to count. Hi, I'm Zoe Schofield.
And I'm Erica Sosna. A warm welcome to the Career Equation podcast. On this podcast, we take time out from our award-winning careers consultancy to share a game-changing formula to help you solve the sum of your life.
Each week, we and our guests use the career equation to explore their story so far and help them unlock the secrets of a fulfilling career.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Career Equation podcast. I'm Erica Sosna, your host, working with you today to solve the sum of your life using the Career Equation tools and method. And today, I'm excited to be with junior doctor Charlie Hillman, who's currently working in A&E, but with a focus and interest on sports and rehabilitative medicine as well. So a very warm welcome to you, Charlie.
Hi, nice to be here.
And of course, junior doctors are in the news at the moment. You're probably getting more profile raising than you normally would because there's been a series of strikes in the UK. And I'd love you to give us a little bit of context from in-house, what it's all about and why the junior doctors are striking right now.
Yeah, so we're actually at the moment not striking. We've just got voting on a pay deal from the government. It just due to a decline in pay essentially since 2008 in real terms. Much more than most other public sector workers, much more than the private sector, definitely, and much more than other workers in the NHS as well. I think that as a collective with the BMA, we decided that enough was enough and we need to ask for more pay. Set out a letter to the government quite a while before the strikes asking to talks, and they didn't want to meet for talks. So that's when striking came about. And the series of strikes has led to the current deal that's been proposed for a 4% increase in pay compared to what the supposedly independent remuneration body has suggested, which is currently being voted on.
Transparency and fairness in pay, I think, is the kind of fundamental of being able to feel valued in your work, being able to attend to what you do. And of course, you guys have spent a lot of time studying. You've got significant student debt. You've got all kinds of commitments and things to pay for while you save people's lives and learn how to save people's lives. So it seems to me a reasonable request. And I'm excited to hear that the new government has proved to be a bit more flexible and responsive to your concerns than the previous. And I hope that gets resolved in a way that's satisfactory for everyone. But of course, we're here to talk today about your future and aspirations. Most people fall into their careers, is my experience as a careers coach. It's been 20 years now talking to people about careers, and most of them fall in. But those who don't, who are really intentional about it, they're always lawyers or doctors. And sometimes I meet them when they are recovering lawyers, recovering doctors who've decided they want to do something else. So I'm always very curious about people who did know what they wanted to do early on. So can you tell me a little bit about your own relationship with doctoring and when you discovered that it might be for you?
Yeah, of course. In school, I always enjoyed science. I was sometimes told that I was good at science. And so I thought, oh, maybe I want to go into a career in science. And I think I was first enamored with a scientific career by watching CSI. But then I realized that that's not really what it's like on TV in real life. And then so I thought about other careers in science. And I thought about maybe something in a lab. And I thought, well, I want to be talking to people. I want to be doing stuff with people rather than just looking at microscope slides and pipetting into things. And so I thought, what about being a doctor? Didn't really know much about it. Set out on a journey to find out what it was about. And I guess here I am.
Here you are. And how, a bit like CSI, how has your imagining of being a doctor in the real world panned out versus the reality? Have there been any surprises?
I think in school, no matter how much work experience you do, you don't really know what it's about. People with injuries and with illnesses, and you read books that describe what it's about, but it's nothing like what it actually is. And medical school kind of prepares you for that. So you slowly get drips and drabs of insights into what the job actually is like. And then your first couple of years of working really is, again, nothing what you expected because you're thrown from job to job every 4 months, barely getting to grips with the people and the equipment and things like that. And then I've been very lucky where I've been in my current job for over a year. And once you get into a specialty training program or you've got a job for over a longer period of time, you finally realize what it's about and you realize this is what my job might look like and you're using the skills that you learned rather than just getting to grips with things every single time.
Yeah, I think this thing about it taking time really to become accomplished is such an important bit of feedback for Gen Z. Our feedback from employers is that people are quite keen to move on when they've just tried ticking something off on their job description. There's a big difference between having done that thing once and being really quite excellent at doing that
Of
thing and
course.
being trusted to do that thing.
Of course.
And that kind of journey about how do you accumulate that experience and practice in anything to also know where your skill set lies, but to move from just competence or awareness to excellence and value, I think is an important journey.
Definitely, especially important in medicine where you need to be quite good at some of the things that you do because it's quite important.
Yeah, and maybe you only get one go. You know?
Yeah.
So we've got a chance to talk a little bit today about a core question for you around your career. Tell me a little bit about what you've got in mind and what might be useful.
Of course. I'm still relatively early on into my career journey, essentially. And you're constantly surrounded by seniors, whether that be registrars or consultants. And you go to them for advice, they supervise you, they educate you. And there are so many different types. The best kind of question that you find in the emergency department, for instance, is if you ask 50 consultants one question, you'll get 50 different answers. And you get that applied to all sorts of things in life. But it's really true. And thinking about which of the ones, I'm always trying to think about which of the ones I want to emulate, what kind of style would I like? Do I go for the ones that spend ages teaching and stop what they're doing immediately and come to talk to you? Or do I want to be like the ones who are extremely efficient and are good for the well-being of the department, but maybe less so for their juniors?
So something about establishing your character, what you want to be known for in terms of your leadership style, relationship building, identity, if you like, as a doctor. So the career equation is great for this stuff because it's actually really about just having this chance to sort of zone out and look at what is it that makes me me? What is it that's important for me? And what is my kind of brand identity? What are the things that count when I measure success at work? So we'll definitely be able to generate some good insights on the back of our key moments. Manager's hack. Charlie's insight about the two different types of doctors is a useful learning point for managers. Most of us operate across the spectrum, from those who prioritize the people side, coaching and mentoring others, making time for patients, versus those who prefer to focus on the efficiency and the smooth running of a service. Of course, both things are very important and there is no right way to be. But when you better understand what your talent prioritize, it can help you to get the most out of them as a leader. It can help you to decide how to delegate the right job to the right person or how to frame impactful feedback. If you know that they're all about the relationships, make sure your feedback focuses on that. If you know they take pride in a smooth and efficient job done, make sure that that is the emphasis. Whether you're delegating tasks or recognizing achievement, catering to what you know about what another person values will always land better with the people you want to grow. So I'll briefly summarize the equation and then we'll go into your 4 key moments that sit around it. What the equation does is it helps people to define what thriving at work looks and feels like. And because most of us find work to be a pretty important aspect of what we do, we can quickly become quite overwhelmed by trying to make decisions and understand what our work should be all about. So the equation tries to make that simple by saying there are basically 4 components to thriving in your work. The first is playing to your strengths and skills, your natural aptitudes, and finding work that really allows you to do as much of that as possible as you can. The second is to apply that to something that interests you, that you enjoy. We call that passions, pleasures. What is it that gives you a thrill, gives you energy, gives you pleasure in your work, and trying to have opportunities to feel like that as often as possible. And the third is, what do you value? How do you measure success in your life and in your career? And to what extent can you really get clear about that so you can measure it and amplify it and work in environments that give you a chance to feel that sense of success? And the last component is about environment. We often say that environment makes the biggest difference because you can have beautiful flourishing plants, you've got a lovely cactus, but you put the cactus in a marsh and it dies. So how do we make sure that we understand what kind of environment helps a person to do their best work? And of course, we're not going to have everything that we want on the list every time, but the more conscious you can be about that, the more that you can help to shape what the environment is that you work in and the choices that you make. So those are the 4 elements of the equation. We're going to dive straight into the first one about skills. So I'd love to hear a little story from when you were a kiddo, when you discovered that you had a skill or talent.
Sure. So I was never really much of a sporty kid, but then later in secondary school, I decided I'd just go for a run every week. So I kind of enjoyed it. And then I never thought of myself as fast. I was always second from the bottom set in PE. And it did a number of runs over several weeks and decided I was going to enter myself for a 10K fun run. And then I was going around collecting donations and things like that, and asked one of my teachers for a donation. And they said, "Oh, what time are you aiming for?" And I said, "Oh, under 40 minutes, nothing major." And then they were very surprised and they were like, "That's pretty fast." And I was like, "Is it?" Never realized. From that, actually, I then ended up doing lots of cross-country running in university and training since, which has progressed that fun sort of strength or a hobby that I have.
What does running give you? Given that you said you weren't really a sporty focused person, I bet there's something else going on there. What is it that you like about it?
I think it's just the rush you get from running at speed. Just really enjoy it. It's time to completely zone out. And since I turned it into something that I do regularly and do training for and things like that, it's nice to have goals outside of work that you can focus on that kind of take your mind away from the hamster wheel of what else you're doing in life.
Yeah, for sure. And the technicality of it, like how into it have you got in terms of the like skills of running? Do you do much technical training?
So I do things like intervals. I do all the different types of stages you do of training for running, and I did it more so in uni as well. It gives kind of a nice blend of my interests in sports and exercise medicine as well, which does definitely help. And so I'm constantly diagnosing myself with the next injury.
It sounds like you're quite structured in your training and your sort of application of here's a concept, here's a body. Let's see how those two things merge together. Does that feel like somewhere that you feel you have an aptitude for, the kind of spotting and connection making between the intellectual and the physical body?
I like to think so. I like to think that that's a lot of what medicine is about. So I think if I'd be quite bad at it, then I'd probably make quite a bad doctor.
And what other strengths do you think come out of the running experience? What are you using, apart from your physical strength, to be able to run at those long distances, to compete effectively? What other strengths are going on in there, do you think?
I think it's a kind of focusing on what you're there for. For instance, running in the rain is something that I never used to really do because I was like, oh, that's awful. Why would I want to do that? But then once you actually go and do it, just wear a hat or something like that. The rain's not going to get in your eyes. It's not bad at all unless it's really heavy or you're going to slip or something like that. It's just the same as running anywhere else. And so the amount thinking about things as I'm there to run, not to enjoy the weather, for instance, really does help in focusing yourself and getting rid of all the extra noise that's around it. The weather's bad. I don't know. I'm slightly tired today. Just ignoring that and thinking, no, I'm going to go on a run. This is what I'm here for.
Yeah. There's something about that I'm hearing about sort of showing up, being fairly focused and determined that sounds relatively easy for you. It's not easy for everyone to put aside other things that are going on and just show up for what's happening. But it sounds like that is a kind of strength of yours. You can compartmentalize and organize, and even if you don't feel like it, do it anyway.
Yeah.
A useful quality.
I think I'd identify with that.
Great. Okay. So we got a little bit of a kind of strength sample from you. Let's talk about pleasures and passions, and tell me about a time where you really thought, I love what I do. This is super cool.
Yes, I think it was probably one of my first shifts in emergency medicine, one of the first couple of weeks or something like that. I'd done rotations on general surgery and all sorts of medical specialties and things like that, where you see patients a bit further along the line, whereas emergency medicine, you see them as soon as they come in. You're the one to make that diagnosis, often, not all the time, but sometimes. The nurses called me to see a patient who was quite unwell that hadn't been seen yet. And you see him with this massive distended abdomen, absolutely writhing out in pain. He's very tender all across his abdomen. He's vomiting. And in my head, I was like, this is bowel obstruction. So sent him straight for a CT scan and was correct. And while not so happy for him, was very happy with myself of being able to say, I knew what it was. It was that. You can give them quite quick symptomatic relief as well. And within a few minutes after that CT scan, he was feeling so much better. Obviously, it wasn't fixed, but it was on the way to being fixed.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'm guessing that never gets tired because you've got such a range of things that could present to you that opportunity to go, can I ask the right questions, look at the right things, and give someone some relief must be continually really very enjoyable.
Definitely. And I think especially in emergency medicine, because you can get so much stuff, you spend so long learning about all sorts of weird and wonderful conditions and things like that. And you can think, is it this? Is it this thing that I've not seen before, but I've learned all this stuff about that we always get told we have to know, but you never actually see. And so it's quite fun to see, when we're going to see one of those people today.
Yes. You sound a little bit like a kind of botanist going in, oh, look, a really rare specimen of bowel obstruction. I haven't seen that for a while. Is there something about that element of discovery and diagnostic? What is the bit that's the woo about that, do you think?
I think it's definitely that bit for me. Obviously, finding the right treatment for the person, or to talk to them about stuff in their own lives, for instance, that might be leading to the reason that they've come into hospital. But I think a large part of it as well is the diagnostics and ruling in, ruling out, thinking quite broadly. It's something that you don't always get as much time to do, but when you are able to sit down, for instance, I've had some great times where I've just sat down with a senior and we've had this case that we're not really sure what it was, and just thinking back to first principles and thinking, could it be this? No, it can't because of this. Could it be this? Those things that really get my mind stimulated, get me interested.
As I listen to you say that, I hear you say, I always love science. And science is about that hypothesis and testing, isn't it? Is there something about that process of rigor, of intellectual examination that's really in there for you, that's really joyful and interesting?
Definitely.
Great. And we talk as well in the equation about this idea of impact. We're always being told how you should define success by the outside world, which is like more money, more power, more speed, or whatever. But, in my years of speaking to thousands of people, actually, this is rarely the reason that they go to work. And it's certainly not the way in which they ensure their success. So if I ask you to mark or measure or tell us a moment about when you really felt like I have been successful, I've had an impact that really matters to me, that I will take with me in my life and be proud of. Can you give us an instance of that?
With A&E specifically, is you get small chances to have an insight into someone's life. You're rarely going to absolutely change their lives. It'll be off unless it's for the bad. You give them a really bad diagnosis. Little wins for me are quite important. One case was there was a patient who was a young man who's quite angry, quite distressed, had come in with a worry about a physical ailment he had that in the end wasn't really that worrying. It was very minor. That didn't really need much doing at all. But you could see that his mental distress was quite out of touch with obviously his physical distress. And this was near the end of a night shift. I was pretty tired. The nurses were fed up of him shouting. All it took really was some proper time to sit down and talk to him about what it is that was troubling him. And it wasn't necessarily really about the physical ailment. It was about other things in his life. And just try and calm him and signpost him to places where he can get help. It didn't sound too much, but it was a proper long conversation of just deep diving into his family history, everything. At the end of that conversation, how he could have gone from about to explode to completely calm. I felt like not only did I do the nurses a favour, but I feel like I might have had some impact on him as well.
I love this idea that it's about the quick wins and the little and often, because I think sometimes, particularly with the medical world, we imagine that the things that really matter are like the massive, extraordinary things. But as you say, the game changing can happen through giving pragmatic care and attention, having the time to do things properly and for people to feel heard and understood, and to not necessarily accept that the presenting problem is always the correct problem, like being able to look beyond those layers and say, I made a difference in a way that was unexpected, because if I'd just taken the presenting, I would have shut up and moved on. And it sounds to me like that could be quite a useful anchor point for you in relation to this question of what I want to be known for, what kind of person, what kind of doctor am I? This idea of sort of having time to do it well and the opportunity to see how simple stuff might make a change. To what extent does that feel like something that could continue to be a lifetime's interest? And would you add anything else into that mix?
So it's an interesting one, because as per design, emergency departments are not places where you have a long time to do things. And you're expected to do things quickly and to do things well. Sometimes you have the time to flex a little and spend a bit longer with patients. to do a job as you would want to do it very holistically. Whereas other times there are 100 people waiting or something like that. If you spend 1 minute longer with that person, that's 1 minute you're not spending with another person. And so there's a lot of counterpoint there, I guess, with the pressures of the system that's about to explode versus what you're actually interested in as well.
Do you think that will shape your decision about whether you stay in emergency medicine? Do you have an intention to move towards something else? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Definitely, yeah. I think it's part of the decision that while I love emergency medicine, I hope to always dip my toes in it in some aspect. My plan eventually is to move across to sports and exercise medicine, where you have longer clinic times, you can develop long relationships with patients, understanding them, and you have that continuity of care where you can properly dig deep into things and test out treatments that if they've not responded to anything else, try this, see if it works. You have a bit more of that time. Whereas in emergency medicine, at the moment at least, it's a very tense environment, it's very busy, and consultants aren't able to provide the teaching and the care sometimes that they want to provide to patients as well.
A bit frenzied. And when you think about occupying that place around sports and rehabilitation and having those longer term relationships with people, having time to really do an in-depth consultation, if you were a fly on the wall in your waiting room in 10, 15 years' time, what would you like to overhear two patients saying about you as their doctor?
I think something that I always aspire to be is the patient that says, oh, they listened to me, for instance. You hear that so much, and there's so much discourse around good doctors, not good doctors, or people coming from their GP, or they saw someone else in their general practice and they said, you know what, they really listened to me. And I think that's having the buy-in from your patients and being able to have their trust and to feel like they were heard, I think is so much of medicine. You can't even explain how much it is. And so I think I would quite like that. But I think so much of medicine also is about training up the next generation of doctors. And so the parts that they don't see as well is, yes, you've spent however long talking to them, but then you've also spent God knows how long talking to your junior that you've got in the room that maybe took the history and you're watching over, or in the next room that you watch them examine the patient and what then happened after that. And I think that's also a big part of what the patient doesn't see, but then is another thing that also occupies your time.
Yeah, so that nurturing, teaching, supporting the next generation is integral to your thinking about what makes for a successful doctoring career. Environmentally, look, everyone knows the NHS has loads of environmental complexities and challenges. And in the equation, we of course say that this can lead, as we know that it does in the NHS, to burnout, to distress, to an environment that really doesn't support you to be at your best. Can you tell us a little bit about the times and contexts where the environment has really got you down or challenged you in trying to do your best job?
Of course, yeah, definitely. So in a place that I've worked in the past that I will not name, the temperature in a working area was often 30 degrees at minimum.
Wow.
For all the times you'd work there, which was absolutely ridiculous. But what I found out from looking it up is there is no legal maximum temperature for a workplace. So actually, there was no incentive to do anything about it. When you'd asked other people, they said, oh, it's been like this for ages. They've not done anything about it. And there's nothing's going to happen to fix it. You'd have to completely just blow up the building and build a new one to be able to fix this. There's no way we're going to get air conditioning or anything. I was having none of it because I don't like to work in a 30-degree environment. It's not very nice, not nice for you, not nice for the patients. What I find also within the NHS as a whole is people sometimes are too burnt out or too apathetic sometimes to report things because they just think, oh, nothing is going to change. Anytime they try to report something, there's been loads of cases with whistleblowers and being silenced and things like that. People just have a culture of not saying things and just complaining to their colleagues instead. So I said, I'm actually going to report this. Initially got no response, so kept on reporting it every single time because we had a little thermometer, because you're required to have a thermometer where there are drugs being stored, so medicines being stored in that room, and that would always show over 30 degrees. So I said, look, it's 30 degrees today, and it's 30 degrees again, and kept reporting it, and eventually tried to escalate it further. But then there was one nurse who I escalated this report to, because I asked her, can I just report to your senior because nothing ever happens? She's like, you haven't reported it to me yet. And I was like, okay, fine. She then escalates it above, and then I get a long email from the head of estates asking about all the details of the situation. And then within a couple of weeks, they've got portable air conditioners in the area. They're making an effort. They've got plans to install a proper air conditioner. While it's taken a bit of a sidetrack from what you initially asked, there are lots of things in the environment that are uncomfortable, but I feel like even in the oldest of building or the rubbishiest of places, often if there's appetite, things can be changed. And it just requires people speaking up for what would make their work conducive. And then if you phrase it in terms of efficiency, people will listen.
Yeah, brilliant. Career hack. Charlie demonstrates the valuable qualities of tenacity and determination here. Whatever it is that we want to accomplish in life, the path doesn't always run smoothly. Sometimes we have to advocate for ourselves and, of course, choose our battles carefully. His demonstration of combining the data and the facts and taking repetitive, strong action to achieve his goals is something that all of us can learn from. Perseverance really can pay, and the results can make a huge difference to yourself and to others. So don't just accept that it can't be done. If it matters to you, keep experimenting with how to make it right. This tells us quite a lot about you as well, in terms of like troubleshooting, taking action, being pragmatic, influencing people. That some of these qualities and characteristics are really helpful for you, but they also tell us a lot about who you want to be known as and what you could bring to the table. When I was in hospital with my spinal cord injury, I didn't go anywhere without a fan. Like, it was catastrophically hot at all times. In the specialist spinal cord unit, the bins were all operated with pedals.
Oh, yeah. That's every hospital.
Yeah, but if you have a spinal cord injury, you can't use a pedal. Your feet don't work. That's the whole gig. So, yeah, I know that there are plenty of like quite strange environmental things in the NHS, but you also, I imagine that it is noisy, busy. There's an awful lot going on. That just sensory pressures, as well as the systemic ones, can be really challenging at times.
People say it takes a special kind of person to work every day in an A&E department because it is so busy, so noisy. I don't mind it as much as maybe other people do, and I think that's why I enjoy working. I think that's part of it. It's about maybe your ability to cope with sensory overload in some ways and how easy you can get used to it. So while it does bother me to some extent, and sometimes when there's buzzers going off every 2 seconds from something that's been broken for 2 years, easy wins I'm happy to fix and those can bug me, but otherwise it's just the working environment as it is. But there's lots of time you could spend thinking about how to best design the apartment for noise and for things like that. But the reality is we're working with what we've got at the moment.
Yeah, and it is an aging estate sometimes in those environments as well. But if we were going to choose then, having thought about the kind of challenges and catastrophes of the environment, if we're going to choose 3 words to describe an environment that really brings out the best in you, what the opposites of some of those would be, and anything else you want to add, what words for environment would you choose, Charlie?
I think I would choose ergonomic. I would choose probably functional and comfortable, I think I would say. I know sometimes functional and comfortable can sometimes be quite opposite, but you can have things that are functional that also are comfortable.
That also, feel good. Great. Thank you. And of course, environment also is about culture. It's about relationships. It's about how much work you're doing. It's about what you're focusing in on. So let's take these 4 components and see if we can put together, we call a career design statement that will help you to be able to articulate what you're bringing and where you're going. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to fill in some gaps for me, and we're going to try and get to a first draft that we can talk about. Okay. The first gap is your name. So
Charlie.
Yes, excellent. You're good at this game.
Fantastic. Full marks.
Full, strong start there. Straight off the mark, like a proper runner. I, Charlie, will use my skills in. And now I'd like you to name, given the conversation that we've had, the top 3 skills that you think you would like to be using over and over again that will never get tired in your work.
Problem solving, I would say efficient.
Mm-hmm. Being efficient.
Caring.
Great. My skills in problem solving, efficiency, and caring.
Yeah.
And my passion for, so this is the enjoyment bit, my enjoyment of, my passion for, what would you say?
Diagnostics, creating a functional, efficient environment.
Nice, yeah.
For others. And speaking up when things are wrong. Or when things could be better, I should say.
Nice, yeah. I'm going to call it speaking up. So now we're talking about impacts and results. I want to use my skills in problem solving, efficiency and caring, my passion for diagnostics, creating a functional and efficient environment, and speaking up when something needs to be said. 2, what's the outcome?
Provide good care for patients and support the next generation of doctors that might end up caring for me.
Nice. And environmentally, you said an environment that's ergonomic, functional, comfortable. Anything else you want to add into that mix? Because we can add as many words as we like on environment that would make a big difference for you being at your best.
So I think comfort, as we said, is a big one. It's not just physical comfort, it's also emotional comfort. It's feeling safe in your environment with the colleagues that you're working in, with the way that you're being treated by others, whether that be staff or patients. And I think that that's something that I guess could be opened up a bit more in that way. But I think those are the most important things for me, to be honest.
Charlie, can you play back what you've got to on the design?
I, Charlie, will use my skills in problem solving, caring, and efficiency, and my passion for diagnostics, creating a functional and efficient environment, and speaking up to provide great care for patients and support the next generation of doctors that might look after me. An environment that is ergonomic, functional, comfortable, and safe, where I'm respected and supported, works best for me.
Great. How does it feel to hear that?
It's interesting. This conversation has brought out aspects of what I enjoy or stuff that I do and get excitement out of that I didn't really think about if I was just asked the question, for instance, but makes sense having said it, if that makes sense as well. And so I guess maybe if I saw this before, I wouldn't necessarily identify it with, but after this conversation of taking bits from the stories, it kind of makes sense.
And how close are you to living that in the work environment that you've got at the moment? If you were to score A&E out of 10 in relation to this list, how's it going?
Oh, okay. I think in terms of environment, most of it's quite low. But the rest of it, I feel like I'm getting there. I'm good. So maybe let's say 6, because I'm still quite early on in my journey. There's still lots to get there. And there's not much I can do at the moment about the environment, but I can always try.
Yeah. And also it gives you clarity for what to aim for when you're making next decisions. Like, how can I find an environment that is more ergonomic and comfortable, or that I could influence to become that way, be it my own practice, of course, where you'd have a lot more control. And that may not be something that you're going to do in the next couple of years, but having that clarity about what I want to experience then helps to inform what you spend time doing in between, the kind of experiences and opportunities that you take to help you inform that point of view. And so if I were to ask you what might be a next step in terms of getting a little bit closer to that experience that you could take with you now and action now, does something come to mind? What would you think of?
I think maybe, so coming up is a decision where I'm going to apply for training. And when you apply for training, you get to rank all the places that you want to be. And of course, you're thrown left, right, and centre around a region. So you get limited say into where you go. But you do get some say into which hospitals you rank higher than others out of the mix of hospitals you get sent to. And I always knew environment had a certain impact on me. But I think out of this conversation, I think it has potentially a bigger impact in my work enjoyment than I thought. So I think potentially visiting or finding out more about the places that I would work before I go there, rather than thinking, oh, that's near to where I want to live, I'll pick there, would be quite important.
Brilliant. We can never completely control the environment, and we can also never entirely predict it before we get into it. But you'd be surprised how much you could do if you were just conscious about what environments suit me best and how does this match up with what I'm hoping for. I hope in that way it's been a useful conversation for you, and one you may not have had otherwise.
Definitely.
And I hope if you found the equation useful, it's also a great way to nurture future talent. So the same sort of questions can apply when you are in a position to support other young doctors. And if we want to stay in touch with you, is LinkedIn the best way to find you?
Yeah, you can just search me. I've got the formal title of Charles Hillman on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. So if you want to connect with Charles, we will make sure that we've got the details in our show notes. But in the meantime, thank you so much for participating in the process. And it's been lovely to spend some time with you, Charlie. Thank you.
It's been lovely as well, Erica. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Career Equation podcast.
Stay connected with us on socials for more career insights, behind-the-scenes moments, and updates on upcoming episodes. And if you'd like to work with us, visit the Career Equation website or click the links in the show notes.
Remember, the Career Equation isn't just a podcast, it's a journey towards unlocking your full potential, enjoying your life, and doing remarkable stuff.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success.
And don't forget to share your thoughts and feedback with us. Your input shapes the future of our show.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success. This is Erica Sosna
And Zoe Schofield. Signing off.